During the First World War, soldiers and civilians alike faced relentless cold in the trenches, makeshift shelters and rural outposts. Firewood was scarce, rationed, and often dangerous to gather under enemy observation. Yet necessity drove innovation, and resourceful individuals found alternative ways to generate heat using whatever materials were at hand. If you're a history enthusiast or a survivalist curious about practical wartime ingenuity, this guide will give you insights that are both historically accurate and, well, applicable today. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe to Warpaths of Europe to dive deeper into the ingenious methods of the past. Soldiers used discarded oil and grease to keep warm in trenches. Metal cans, discarded ration tins, and leftover cooking fats were valuable commodities on the front lines. Soldiers collected any scraps of grease or animal fat from rations or slaughtered livestock, storing them in small tins or wrapped in cloth. These fats burned hotter and longer than simple kindling. They could be used directly in improvised stoves, often constructed from empty shells, tins, or wood frames lined with mud. The key was containment and controlled airflow. Too much air, and the fat burned too quickly, too little, and it produced smoke that could give away positions. Today, for off-grid heating, knowing that grease and fat can supplement traditional fuel sources is invaluable. You can gather kitchen scraps or rendered fats and use them in small, controlled stoves to generate steady heat in survival situations. Coal dust and peat were often scavenged from industrial or rural sites. Wherever rail lines or industrial settlements existed near the front, soldiers and civilians scavenged coal dust, slack coal, or peat remnants. Coal dust was stored in cloth sacks and packed tightly into stove cavities to provide a slow, enduring burn. Peat, harvested from boggy areas, could be dried and burned like small logs. Both were surprisingly energy-dense, and soldiers often carried small amounts in pockets or packs for emergency heating. Practically, if you are off-grid today and have access to similar resources, old coal residues from abandoned furnaces or dried peat from legal sources, these materials can form a reliable heating supplement, particularly when combined with small amounts of wood or kindling. Paper, cardboard and textile waste provided quick heat when firewood was unavailable. In the mud and cold of the trenches, soldiers could rarely afford the luxury of large logs. Instead, they relied on paper from newspapers, old maps, and cardboard packaging. Textiles such as worn uniforms, socks, or canvas scraps were rolled tightly and dried. These materials burned quickly, making them ideal for short-term heating or starting larger fires. In a practical off-grid setting, shredded cardboard or cloth scraps can be twisted into cords and dried to serve as tinder or quick-burning fuel for a small stove. Knowing how to efficiently store and dry these materials, much like soldiers did by keeping them near body heat or under waterproof covers, ensures they remain usable when needed. Wood shavings and sawdust from abandoned carpentry or military workshops, these, became surprisingly vital. Where armies left behind workshops or civilians had access to carpentry sites, wood shavings and sawdust became a critical fuel source. Packed into tins, layered with cloth, or formed into compressed blocks, these materials provided heat with minimal smoke and were lightweight to transport. Soldiers discovered that mixing sawdust with just a small amount of fat or wax increased burn time significantly. For off-grid applications today, collecting wood shavings from carpentry shops or milling sites and compressing them into small blocks with wax or animal fat creates a portable and long-lasting fuel source. Charcoal from destroyed buildings and old stoves was quite efficiently repurposed. After bombardments or evacuations, soldiers scavenged charred remains of stoves, fireplaces and buildings. This charcoal burned hot, clean and reliably, ideal for heating small shelters. Often it was carried in small canvas bags and ignited carefully to prevent waste. For modern off-grid heating, retaining small quantities of charcoal from legal sources or burned wood can serve as a backup fuel. Combined with improvised stoves or contained fire pits, it provides a concentrated heat source that requires minimal tending. Alcohol-based fuels were now and then improvised from fermentation or chemicals. Though less common, soldiers and civilians sometimes created small alcohol stoves using fermented grains, potatoes or industrial spirits. These provided a controllable flame without smoke, suitable for heating a small tent or cooking ration packs. While the energy output is lower than coal or fat, the portability and low visibility of alcohol flames made it valuable during surveillance-heavy periods. Off-grid enthusiasts can replicate this by creating small, controlled alcohol burners for emergency heating or cooking when wood or coal isn't available. Learning from the World War I mindset, it's clear adaptability and resourcefulness matter most. The overriding lesson from World War I field-expedient fuels isn't just about which materials burn, it's about adaptability. Soldiers were limited by what was at hand, yet they innovated constantly. They dried, stored and combined materials to maximize heat, minimize smoke and conserve resources. Applying these lessons today means observing your environment, collecting waste or overlooked resources, and combining them strategically to create sustainable heat sources off-grid. Every technique discussed here has a historical precedent and practical survival value. From fats and grease to sawdust and peat, these methods reveal the ingenuity required to endure harsh winters without relying on conventional fuel. If this guide added value to your historical understanding or sparked ideas for off-grid preparedness, make sure to subscribe to Warpaths of Europe. Leave a comment sharing which technique you'd try first, and hit that like button to support more detailed explorations of wartime survival strategies. Share this with fellow enthusiasts who want to see history not just remembered, but applied.